Well, I show that it's 7 o'clock, so I suppose we should get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this evening's webinar entitled Beginning Your Research and Analyzing Properly Using Internet Resources. My name is Jesse Laris, and I've been an instructor with Argosy University Online since 2009 and a librarian with Argosy University Twin Cities campus since 2001. Before we get started, I would like to make a few announcements. This webinar will be recorded, so I've placed everyone on mute. If you have questions, please feel free to ask using the chat function. This is what I call a mini webinar because it is approximately 15 minutes long, and I will be going at a rapid pace trying to get a lot of information out there. But after the 15 minutes are over, I will allow 5 minutes for questions. If your question is not answered or if you have a follow-up question after the presentation, please feel free to reach out to me through the contact information listed on this page. I can always tell students that we as librarians are very customer service focused. So if you have questions or you need help with your research, please feel free to ask us. We're more than willing to help you, learn how to get in there and learn the different databases. That's what we do. Also, if there are any particular webinars that you would like to see, please forward those to me, and I'll pass them on, and we'll see if we have an expert. So if there's a particular area that you think might be of interest to yourself or to others, we're always open for suggestions. As I mentioned earlier, this is a 15-minute webinar that will cover the topic of beginning your research, analyzing and properly using Internet resources. And this is born out of a Communications 106 class that I've taught for an undergraduate, our AUO undergraduate program. Now, what I'm teaching you isn't specifically for undergraduates. As a graduate student or a faculty member or whatever, you may find uses for what we're going to cover tonight. As librarians, one of the things that we want to teach people is something called information literacy. And information literacy, as defined by the Association of College and Research Libraries, essentially what we're trying to do is help you to recognize when information is needed for whatever research you're doing, then giving you giving you the skills to locate, evaluate, and then effectively use that information. So what we really need to know is, how do we know what is the good information, what's authentic and valid information that we can use. So there are 5 characteristics laid out by the ACRL, and the ones that and they're listed on the screen in front of you now. What we're going to talk about tonight is accessing and effectively using accessing the information effectively and efficiently, and then evaluating critically as well. One thing I want to talk about first is there's a lot of misconceptions about the term, or people use the term Internet and World Wide Web almost simultaneously meaning the same thing, but they are a little different. The Internet basically refers to the different software that you would have that connects the different servers and routers and so on and so forth that make up the Internet. The World Wide Web, that's the stuff, that's like the documents and the contents that is put out on the Internet. And so search engines such as Google and Yahoo are there to help us find that information out on the Internet. And library databases have a similar structure where journal articles or books are housed within a particular database, and then we use a search engine to go in and try to gather that information that's in there. And so as researchers, what are the things that we really need to be thinking about? You may already have heard these terms, credibility and reliability, but maybe they haven't been explained in great detail. Essentially what credibility means is that it's the author's credentials. What's the background of the author? Does the person have the credentials to write on that topic? Is it a doctor someone with a doctorate degree who's talking about some psychological program, or is it somebody that's just giving their opinion? What I refer to here specifically is the difference between going out on the Internet and finding a blog where somebody is giving their opinion about a certain topic, as opposed to going into the database and finding a peer-reviewed article that somebody's written that gives a little bit more depth. And then reliability is just basically the trustworthiness of the information. When you go into the library databases, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term peer-reviewed, but there's a term called peer-reviewed where before journal articles can be published in a scholarly paper and a scholarly journal, they have to go through a process where the information is vetted to make sure that it adheres to strict standards. When you're talking about stuff on the internet, web pages, so on and so forth, it's hard to determine what's trustworthy and what is not. Next, as a researcher, you need to evaluate whether the information you're finding is relevant to your research, and that's why it's important when you talk to a librarian, they ask you what kind of keywords do you have or what search terms are you using. When you start your research, you should try to develop as many search terms as possible. Get yourself like a list of different ones that you can start going through, and as you go through, you'll probably find other search terms that might help you go in the direction of whatever your thesis is. Lastly is the ability to evaluate the biases inherent in the work. Now, in some cases, when you read research articles, you're going to have to look and kind of figure out what is the author, does the author have a bent, or is he letting the research or she letting the research guide the article? You know, is it they're just presenting the information and this is what they, that they assume? When you go onto the internet, it's sometimes hard to determine what exactly that website is, what's their agenda. Some ways that you can determine what their agenda is by going into the mission statement or the About Us section, and that will give you some background as to what that particular website is there for. For instance, if you go to PETA's website, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, they definitely have an agenda that they're trying to push across. So you need to be careful with that. In regards to talking about searching the internet, here's up to the right-hand side, you'll see some of the common top domain names. And what I want to illustrate here is that I'm not sure how many people are familiar or even know what .com actually stands for. Well, it stands for commercial, which means that the website is typically trying to sell a product. And that's why when your instructor says don't use any .com websites, that they don't want you to go out and just grab whatever's on Google, bring it back, and present it. It's just because there might be a bias towards, their particular product because they're trying to get you to buy that particular product. What I would suggest doing is going into the either using a .edu website or a .gov website. .edu is for education, .gov is for government, and then .org. Sometimes you can use them. You need to be careful with them, though. If you went to the American Psychological Association's website, that would probably be a good one. But sometimes when you go out and onto the internet, you'll find some misleading websites, and I'm going to jump out there right now and talk about a particular website. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the dihydrogen monoxide research division, but this is something that is a very controversial product that's out there in our environment. If we look at the environmental impact of DHMO, we'll see down here that DHMO contributes to global warming, that it enables acid rain, that it is a causative agent in soil erosion, that there are high levels in every lake, river, and stream of the world, and they actually found this particular component or this particular chemical in the Arctic and Antarctic. But if we think about it for a moment and we look at the term dihydrogen monoxide, we know that dihydrogen is H2 and monoxide is just O, so this is actually H2O. And so what they're talking about here is water. And this is a website that was put out there that by an instructor, I believe, that was trying to just to show that people can put stuff on the internet that can be misleading. And then going back to the PowerPoint here, there we go. And then I don't know if I'm going to be able to get into this, but if you have a chance to, you might, I've been blocked by our particular university from going to that website, but I believe it's martinlutherking.org. And if you go to this website, it looks like a website that it seems credible. It talks about the history of Dr. Martin Luther King. It talks about, it's got research articles about Dr. Martin Luther King, and so on and so forth. But once you get in there, you don't have a lot of information about who had developed the website. But if you scroll down to the very bottom, you'll see that it's hosted by Stormfront. And Stormfront is actually a a racist organization. It's a white supremacist organization. They put this together. It's basically slandering Dr. Martin Luther King. Again, I apologize, I can't get to it this evening, but if you have a chance to go to it's martinlutherking.org, please feel free to do so and check that out. Some of the things that you can, some of the tools that you can use to determine whether a website is a good website or not are these 5 criteria here. And they are accuracy, and by that it's determining whether or not you can contact the website to verify whether the information there is accurate or not. You can also try to triangulate the data. Is what is listed on that website, if you go to another website, are they saying similar things, or is this saying something completely different? If a website doesn't have any type of contact information, then you have to start thinking, well, maybe this isn't such a great website. Authority, do they have the credentials? We talked about that. Objectivity, are they biased? Currency, how old is the information? So is it more current? Is it a couple of years old? Was it published in 1998 and there's not been any updates on the page? If you click on the link, is it dead? This shows that people aren't maintaining that website. And then coverage as well. Does it seem like it's covering one specific topic, or is it all over the board? One place I want to take you to is the Center for Disease Control. I love this website because the way they have it set up, it's an example of a website that's covering all these topics. So, for instance, you've got the .gov at the top of the page here, so you can see that's the first page here. They've got a lot of contact information. They give you a phone number, an email address, and you can send a letter if you want to, or if you want to visit the building. If you go into one of the websites, typically if you go onto a website, at the bottom of this, right below the title, you'll find the authors, whoever wrote it, and then also the date when it was published. But at the secret of the bottom of the page, you've got the date that it was reviewed and the date that was updated. I would typically, if I were to use this in to cite this in a paper, I'd probably go with the date it was updated, because that would be the last date of the current information. Some people might have come in and just taken a look at it to make sure everything was current and up to date, but that's just a review. They've also got the website where the information was where it was originated. In some cases, you might find that it was this says that it was maintained by this particular office, but you might also find that it's another division of the CDC or the government that is putting this information out there. And again, they've got their contact information right up front here. So, wrapping up this presentation, I just want to cover some of the things that we talked about already. To be information literate, we need to be able to find, evaluate, and use information effectively. The Internet and the World Wide Web are not the same thing. We need to be able to critically analyze the information we find. Look to determine if the authors are credible. Does the website look reliable? Is it relevant to our research? Do we have any biases in there? You always want to use domains that end in .edu or .gov. I would be careful with .coms or .orgs as well. Use those 5 criteria of the for evaluating a website. And then lastly, we really didn't talk about this, but the one thing I want to stress is that everyone who is engaged in academic pursuits is by definition considered a scholar. And so learning more about information literacy and getting into the databases and learning more about effective ways to search is going to increase your ability as a scholar. So let's see. At this time, if we have any questions, I will take those. And I'm trying to figure out where that went. There we go. Again, if anyone wants to contact me, they can shoot me an email or give me a phone call. My phone number there. What I will tell you is this: that at the it might be tomorrow or it might be Thursday at the latest. But what I want to do is, for everybody that was signed up for this course, I'm going to send this PowerPoint presentation as well as the other presentations that I'm doing this evening. As well as a link to the YouTube video for this particular presentation. So you'll get all that information in one bulk email So you'll have this to refer to later, as well as as links to the YouTube video that you can tell your friends about, and they'll just love to go and check it out. Anyway, so at this time, are there any questions? If there are any questions, please type them into the questions section at the bottom of the chat window. Okay, well, it doesn't look like there are any questions, so since I don't, need more time. I would concur with that. Oh, let me just check this out here. Yeah, we do go through a lot of information in a short amount of time. Again, though, this is kind of a scratching the surface. So if you have other questions, once you've got the PowerPoint and the and the other presentation, you can ask other questions as far as getting in contact with the librarian or getting into contact with me, and we can go over those at that time. Anything else? All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening and listening to my presentation. This has been a lot of fun. Hopefully, we'll see you in the presentations that are coming up here at 7:30 and then again at 8 o'clock. But again, everyone, thank you. I really appreciate it, and I wish you all the best. Thanks again. Bye-bye.